Well, hi and welcome back to my beautiful office. We're talking about lenses today. Now I'm doing a comparison between EF and RF on the R6. So is it worthwhile upgrading to the RF lenses, which are more designed for the R series cameras? You know, to get the best performance out of it, obviously that would be the way to go. But the money, this has just burnt a hell of a hole in my pocket. It's dearer than the camera. And it took some thinking, hard thinking, whether or not I should really do this. But we have, it's exciting, we've got it in our hands. Would it be a better idea to have stuck with the EF lenses because they're cheaper, plenty of them around, get a good second-hand one? A 100 to 400 would be a better length, because that's one of the reasons that drove me to go for a 500mm lens. Is the 300 has become not useless but pretty annoying that I haven't got enough reach anymore, because my other camera, my last camera, was the 17 Mark II with its crop factor of the C-size sensor, made this lens into a 500mm lens. It's not going to be a shoot down because that'd be silly. One versus the other when they're different focal lengths. Now that we have a full frame sensor, this is a 300mm. So it's just really about, is the focusing better with the RF lens and the stabilization. So that's that bit of waffle out of the way. Let's get back to this beautiful lens, my first impressions. It's big, it's heavy, and it's white. I am going to have to get myself some camo stickers for this to help it blend in, so it's not so obvious to people from 100 meters away. And birds and animals, yeah, I think camo gear is needed for this, because that hood just topped off all that whiteness, where that's got a nice black one, which I'd prefer blend, helps it to blend in a little bit better. So talking about the hood, how's that performed? I could have done with being a little bit longer. I went out onto grassy paddocks like I've got here, that's up to my waist. I did get a lot of grass seeds and stuff in there, and some dewdrops on the lens. Only had it 2 days and I got crap on the lens. Whereas this one has a felt material inside, that's plastic grids. That seems to catch the seeds, where this doesn't. They went, excuse me, I did get a couple on the lens itself. I've never ever had that problem on this, walking through the same paddocks. You look at them, it's just slightly longer, this one. I think they could have done the same, especially with it being a hell of a lot wider than that. A lot more area to get stuff in there. The side door there that allows you to change the polarizer, be able to turn it. It doesn't lock. It just sits there. So I had it come open quite a few times. So I've put sticky tape on there. So there's a little bit of a reason to, more crap getting in. So it's taped, and that'll do for now. Focusing. That all-important first image when you're so excited about using a new lens. How's it going to perform for me? DSLRs. A single point. With the 17 Mark II, in the forest environment, single point was the way to go. Couldn't use tracking because it'd get confused. It wouldn't know what you wanted. So single point was vital, and that never let me down. You put it on that bird, doesn't matter how small it is, as long as you've got the right focus square on it, the smaller one for the smaller birds, nailed it every time. So seconds, you got seconds to grab an image. How was this in that department? Well, with this lens on, I've been having trouble. It'd go to the background. So the bird is obvious. It's on that branch. I've got it right on it with that focus point. And the R6 would go to the background. That is terribly frustrating. Try and get back, you'd have to grab that focus ring. Well, the bird's gone, forget about it. And it's vital to have dual back button focusing so you can go to eye detect, because sometimes the tracking would go onto the branch, give you that good start, go back to the one point, it would stay on it and you'd be right from there. After all that waffle I've just said, has this new lens improved in that area? No. Now, I took this camera out yesterday, out into the open paddock. My biggest surprise about focusing was the difference between these two in tracking a bird in flight. Well, I am really enjoying this lens already, and I've only been using it for about 15 minutes out here in the cow paddocks. That the focusing with tracking is working a hell of a lot better than it did on the EF lens. It's quick and snappy. It just getting my subject, bird in flight, instantly. Where the EF lens, as good as it is, it would hunt a little bit, especially on a bright sunny day with no clouds. It would struggle a little bit to get my subject unless it was right up close. So something coming in the distance that was still quite large, it couldn't find it, and I'd have to muck around changing the cases. I'd have to go to case 4, was good on a bright sunny day with no clouds. And on a cloudy day, where there's lots of cloud in the background, I'd go to case auto, and I've got birds coming, sorry. The difference between the two is a lot more than I was expecting. Do you want a percentage? Let's say maybe 20 to 30% better. I followed this bird across the scene as it started to head into the tree line, which is always hard for any focusing system because, again, we've got lots of distractions. With the white of this ibis, it stuck to it like glue. Didn't matter what colour it was, the EF lens struggled in that area. Now, I'm yet to test it on a darker bird, Pacific duck or something like that, where the colours are a lot more matching to the trees. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. Lenses have a certain distance where the quality drops off. For this lens, even on the 7D Mark II, this would be 15 metres. Anything at 15 metres would be clear and sharp. After that it drops off. This lens, we're going to 30 metres. That is brilliant because this is a working distance in open paddocks. Can be very hard to, especially with water birds. They're much more alert, much more flightier than they are in a forest environment because it's so open. They see you coming from a distance and they get nervous and they're off. They don't allow my talents that I have in a forest environment of being able to read my subject's body language and be able to react to that, make myself appear non-threatening. Out in the open, yep, definitely harder to do. I had a very rare day yesterday out in the cow paddocks of Yarra Glen. Get a new lens and all of a sudden the comrades will actually sit and let you get up close to them. That just doesn't happen for me. We've got some really beautiful, sharp, clean images. And I was a little bit amazed because something with this lens, when you have something at such a distance, you get the same effect as you do with using a telescope looking at the moon, handheld. You know how awkward that is to try and keep it on that subject? No amount of stabilisation can help with that. And that's what I was getting, so that was really disappointing. Hand holding this, I thought I wouldn't have to worry about that sort of thing. But anything that's at a long distance, it's very hard to control. So yeah, trying to keep it on it, I'm thinking, it's not going to focus. That's just too much movement around. It nailed it. They go onto a tripod though, and you know, that would be the best thing to use if you're going to be hanging around the waterway, waiting for something to happen. I'd be putting it on a tripod for sure. But we achieved it. But things that are up fairly close, it's doing a reasonable job. We're getting some beautiful background blue with this lens, of course, because it's a lot longer focal length, zoom range. It's really blurring out that background a hell of a lot more than my 300mm EF lens. So that's a big improvement as well. It's going to make my images look a lot better. Some of the ones I've taken so far look really, really good. I'm talking to you through the camera's own microphone, right up close to, I've got my eye on the viewfinder. So can you hear the stabilizer working on the lens? And can you hear the focusing on the lens? Let's zoom to the background. I can't hear anything. The golden-headed Sokola. But trying to get them in flight with this lens, yeah, it's just a no-go. Little tiny thing flying in the air, couldn't focus on it. But this nailed it. So if I can have them a little bit closer, we're going to get some really good images. And then I walked further down the track and I come across some tiny little birds. I wasn't quite sure what they were, flying across the sky. And I thought, oh, a little bit further than 20 metres. But we'll take a shot and see what happens. It tracked them just out of its reach of looking really good images and detailed, but it actually got them. They were stranded pardalates, which are a tinier bird than that Sokola. Well, I have been sitting here for 4 nights in a row, waiting for my subject to turn up, and finally it did, and that's the Agile Antechinus. That's pretty much the reason that I bought the R6 and this very, very expensive lens to get action shots of it, because it's a little bit bigger than a mouse and it has this very explosive speed. So take off, as it goes to bound, it bounds like a possum does when it's on the move. It doesn't scamper like a mouse. So with the EF lens, I was trying to achieve that with the R6 because my 7D Mark II couldn't do it. I was hoping this system would do the job for me, or at least give me 1 in 100 maybe. With the EF lens, eye detect would work really well. It would follow up for a little bit and it would drop off, go to a square, and as it goes to this explosion of speed, the square would stay on it, because I can see that in Canon's Digital Professional. You can see where it focused. So it's got it at the start, but as it goes through, it's lost the focusing on it, even though the square's on it. But as it goes to stop, as its front paws hit the ground, and the deceleration, it catches up with it and it's in focus, but that is not a flattering image. At 20 frames per second we're getting all those action shots, but unfortunately with this RF lens we are not doing any better. It seemed like the eye detect was working a little bit better, like a lot quicker, but then it'd drop off. I was quite surprised. I thought it'd be a lot better after seeing how different it was out in the open paddocks, how it'd find something in the distance like that instantly, whereas the EF lens would do that little bit of hunting. So we still haven't achieved what we put this bloody unit for. Very disappointing, but maybe, again, maybe might be a saving grace here with this new firmware. Now it come out 2 days ago. I've come down to a beach environment down at Phillip Island to test out the new firmware that I downloaded last night. So 150. And from what I've done with my testing so far is I can't see any difference. We get those added extra bits, car and motorcycle things that I'll never use. As far as upping the level of focusing, no difference. I have also checked out the closest distance you can get with this RF 100 to 500mm lens, and my results were quite interesting. Now, according to Canon, at the telephoto end it's 1.2 meters, and at the wide end it's 900mm. So I whacked it on the kitchen bench, got the tape measure out. Yeah, and there's something weird going on here, because at the wide end it was 630mm away from my subject, and at the fully zoomed out end it was 970mm. So go figure, I don't know. It's totally different than what Canon are saying. So is mine just a freak of nature? If you have a RF 100 to 500mm lens, leave a comment in the section below this video and tell me whether you're getting the same as me. Time to wrap this video up, I think. So the biggest difference between both of them that I own is that the RF lens picks up a bird in flight instantly, where my EF lens hunts a little bit. So that's going to be the worst that you're going to get. There's a little bit of increased sharpening with this lens. It's minute though, but I can see it, and a little bit more clarity to the image. But otherwise, stabilization's only slightly better on the RF lens, just slightly. And you get a quiet mode of which you can't hear. So when you're filming with a microphone on top, you're not going to hear any stabilization noise or any focusing noise. So if they're sort of things that mean a lot to you, well, then the RF lens is the way to go. But really, if you can't afford these and you've got to put yourself into debt, why do that? That'd just be crazy. Go and get a second-hand EF lens. 100 to 400 is the longest you can get. Otherwise, you've got to go to a prime and the price goes up. So you might lose out a little bit with that reach, but really, I think in the end it comes down to money. And are you going to make money out of this combination? If you want to milk the most out of this R6 and make money out of your images, or you're already making money out of your images, well, of course, that's the way to go. Just get that little bit extra and you can afford to buy one of these. For me, that's what's happened. That's exactly why I've got this system now. A complete system that'll help me to make money off my images. I already am with the EF lens, video and photographs. So it works for me, but it might not for you. But yeah, my honest opinion is there is nothing wrong with EF lenses on an R series camera. You're only missing out on a minute amount of stuff. That's it. That's my waffle for this video. Hope you got something out of it and enjoyed me waffling on as usual. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel and get more of this amazing stuff, click on my pretty little face just down there in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Hit the little bell, you'll get those notifications. Now, if you like this video and you'd like to help my channel grow, and boy does it need it, it would be awesome if you could help me out. Click that thumbs up, and yeah, I'll be very grateful to you. All right, so if you want to go and have a look at all the other mad and crazy things I've been doing in the past, click on my icon right here at the end of this video, take you to my channel. I talk about any camera equipment that I buy and give you my honest opinion on them. And I go on adventures and I take you with me. And I'm always talking about photographing and filming in a forest environment. A lot of times about my passion, the agile endocrinologist, of course, but there'll be tons of stuff there for you. Go and have a browse. There'll be something of interest to you there, I am sure. Now, just remember, if you don't do, you don't get. So get out there and start photographing and filming wildlife, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.